Welcome to Patriot Talk. I am Todd Holman. Today I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So I went back and I watched my video, my first video, the introductory video, and I realized that reading from a script sure does make me sound like a robot. And I also saw the editing error pointed out by my wife and daughter. I'm going to try to do everything in one shot. So let's go on with it. So today I'm going to be talking about the First Amendment. So the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason. Our founding fathers felt that the information within the First Amendment was just that important that it had to be first. So first, I'm going to go ahead and actually read from the First Amendment and then talk about it with a little bit of history, some family history that is directly connected to the First Amendment. So here we go. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government a redress of grievances. So what does that mean? So what that means is that the government is not allowed to prevent you from practicing a religion. So if you are Muslim here in America, then you have every right to assemble at a mosque, go to temple as someone that's Jewish, or even to church as a Christian, and there's nothing saying that that you have to practice a religion either, because that is your right to not practice religion. So things that have been going on over this last year are directly in violation of the First Amendment. The government was preventing people from gathering peaceably in a place of worship. I don't agree with that. Obviously, I mean, I wouldn't be talking about it if I did. Another thing is the freedom of speech. So here we are, freedom of speech. I have every right to be putting these videos out and talking about our rights and our freedoms, and to actually talk about our government. That is one of the other great things about our nation, is that we have that right and that ability to speak out against our government without fear of reprisal. Now, if I were to sit here and make a threat to the government, that would be different. That's not peaceable. And by making a threat directly to the government, could be considered treasonous, depending on what the threat was. And I could be shut down at that point, obviously. So for as far as assembling peacefully, I absolutely have no problem with people protesting, gathering in a peaceful manner to protest. Again, I served 20 years. I served my time in the service to our nation to fight for that right. I may not like some of the things that people protest or say, but it is their right, and I fought for that right. But the moment that you cross that line and break the law, it is no longer a peaceful protest. For example, last year, with all of the protests that were going on and cities being burned, businesses being burned, uh, you know, the the theft of property, the destruction of property, that is illegal. You are now a criminal. If you go there and you remain peaceful and you speak your mind, then by all means, please do that. That is your right. But that moment that you infringe upon other people's rights in a destructive manner, that is wrong. That is no longer peaceful. It is the right of the press to report news in the manner that they see fit. So, fake news? Well, is it fake news? Or is it just one side of the news? The left sees, the news and reports it this way. The right will see the news and report it this way. But when you're looking at the whole picture, you're going to see, all the facts, or at least a majority of the facts. We are beyond that time where news is reported. Now we are being told, by either the left or the right, what they want you to hear or want you to believe. That's why I look at many different news sources, be it from the left or the right or in the middle. If there is something that is just that important, I am going to investigate it myself. I am going to look at several sources. I'm not going to take the word of one source and make that gospel. No, I definitely not. An example would be that one side, on how one side versus the other side. So if we had a plane wreck, so one side's going to say, there was a plane wreck, 50 people perished. The other side's going to say there was a plane wreck, 50 people survived. But the whole picture is, a plane wreck, 100 souls on board, 50 survived, 50 perished. That's the whole news. But each side is going to tell their part. And so it's up to you to find those parts. So if you're only hearing about the people that perished, how do you know how many people survived? Okay. So, it's important to look at all sides. So a little bit of an example of our freedom of religion and with the establishment of our great nation. In the previous video, I did mention that I have roots dating back to 1635 here in the colonies in New England. And that establishment started with my 9 times great-grandfather. So great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Reverend Peter Hobart. Reverend Peter Hobart was born in Hingham, Norfolk, England. He was a pastor in a Puritan church. And during, a great time of, not great as in yay, but just a great time of religious persecution in England, him and his family left England during the Puritan Great Migration of 1620 to 1640. And they landed in Charlestown, June 8th, 1635, Charlestown, Massachusetts. And so, shortly thereafter, they settled down into Bear Cove, Massachusetts, and then he later petitioned Bear Cove to be renamed Hingham. Hingham, Massachusetts, which is still named Hingham, Massachusetts today. Um, you know, he was a very prominent figure in that community. The Hobarts were him, his father, and his brother, and as were the Lincolns. The Lincolns were actually, a prominent figure there in Hingham, Massachusetts, in the 17th century. Reverend Peter Hobart actually led to the establishment of the Old Ship Church. The Old Ship Church was actually established in 1681, which was just a couple of years after his death. But he actually had pushed to have that church established. He was the first pastor of that congregation, but he did not get to see the completed, meeting house. There were meeting houses then. They weren't churches. They were meeting houses because they had multi-purpose to the building. But it is the last standing 17th century meeting house in America, and it is still used today by a Unitarian church. If you have that opportunity to get to Hingham, Massachusetts, go check it out. It is great. It has been very well kept, and historically speaking, and then of course there's a graveyard connected to it, and there are many well-known names in the graveyard, to include the Hobarts and the Lincolns, along with other prominent names from that era. So like I said, that was my 9 times great grandfather, which is really cool to me because, being that he's, a 9 times great grandfather, that is a direct lineage for me being established here in this country. So I am native to the United States. I'm not Native American, but I am native to this land by birth. But that's like one of the great things about learning about our history. Even before we broke away from England and established our own country and our own laws, it was a place that those could come and practice their own way. We kind of fast forward to today. Well, here we are today, in the 21st century, and we're still fighting. We're still fighting to practice the way we choose. The government is still today pressing the issue. One of the things that they're pressing is that freedom of press. So when we look at the last few years, and I'm not just talking just during the Trump administration, but even before that and even today, for an example, when you watch the White House press briefings, the Democrats have more of a tendency to choose answers from the left side media. The Republicans have more of a tendency to choose questions from the right side media. So, that right there is just a very simple example of restricting the freedom of press. If the press is not allowed to ask their questions, which it is within their constitutional right, because we are allowed to petition the government to redress grievances. So if the press can't ask the questions for the public, then it's up to us as members of the public to question the government. If we don't like something the government has done, it is our job as citizens to challenge the government peacefully through your representative, through your senator, through protest, through petitions. So, we have many, many ways to peacefully interact with the government and demand change. So, I hope that you've been able to, enjoy this video, maybe a little bit more than the first video. For those of you that are watching this video, thank you. Thank you for watching it. A couple things that I wanted to address as far as YouTube goes. Thank you, YouTube, for allowing me to have this platform. But something that my 11-year-old daughter told me last night, she said, she was like, I really like the video, Dad, but, I have a suggestion. Oh, okay. She told me, she said, when you tell people to subscribe, make sure you tell them to subscribe and smash that bell. Okay, so when you're there on YouTube, hit subscribe. Once you hit subscribe, little bell comes up, and it'll allow you to request notifications. So whenever I post a new video, it will tell you then that a new video is posted. So hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell, and thank you for taking a few minutes to listen. And remember to stand up, speak out, and be strong.